actually for, I don't know, 2 years or so, like had taught this particular sort of resources to them and every class period, because it's so important, especially mentorship, because they're getting ready to kind of go into jobs and mentor with actual professionals, and time management is integral. And then I just kind of kept doing it in a variety of fashions. So this is a little bit about me. I do have 2 boys, as I mentioned. I have a high schooler, and then I have an 8th grader. I've been an educator for over 2 decades. A lot of what I do is college and career readiness, mental health awareness, which you'll kind of see through this book as well, a lot with executive functioning, and instructional design. And I am an author of 2 books, and honestly, both of them were written kind of during my tenure at the high school. I stopped working at Westlake in 2021. I had some health issues, and it just wasn't feasible for me to kind of work full-time and do that as well. So I kind of stepped away at that time. But for 10 years, I was working there as an educational technologist. And I'm currently writing a book with my dad, actually now, so that'll be my 3rd book, and it deals with healing for generational abandonment. So it's not an educational book, although I'm sure it will be educational. Then I have all of my information. My Instagram kind of talks more about the 3rd book I'm writing and things like that, as does my website there. So that was me at the high school teaching probably time management or digital distractions. This just kind of gives you a timeline. When I was at the high school, I was doing webinars and things like that for parents. This was me when I had short hair. Previously here, I think the desk is slightly different. But that was, I think it was talking about time management or something like that. I've done it for a few years. And then, at the high school with working with students and, a variety of you kind of picked up a few of those things. I always like to create templates for kids. I think it's a good way, rather than just, hey, we're just going to start with nothing, kind of start with kind of a walled garden. And then I would go over to the middle school, that's Westridge, and do things with readers' notebooks and a variety of things like that, just because I love reading. And also, this was actually at Hill Country. We did a bullet journaling class during, I think it was their health and fitness sort of time. So, and then recently, time management keeps coming up. In fact, I was asked over the summer to go speak to librarians in Region 1 about time management. And so this topic, continually comes up and up and up. I like note-taking guides. I think they're helpful. Do you have to use it? No. Am I gonna walk around and make sure you're taking notes? No, because you're not in school anymore. You'll have the presentation and you'll have kind of this information, but if you wanted to just jot down oh, hey, that's a good tool, or hey, that's a good tip, do that. If not, again, totally fine. This I will send to Katie for you. It's an article. What happens though sometimes with my old computer is when I jump out to a website, then it goes and then everything comes down. So you can remember this. It's a great article. It's actually kind of lengthy, but it's got just all of these different ideas of what time management actually is, because sometimes we just kind of want to think about it as 1 or 2 or 3 things, but it's a lot more. So that's kind of what I'm going into. And then this list is a micro version of what that article was, which again, I'll send to Katie and she'll have it available for you. But just kind of what are time management skills? So sometimes we don't really have a frame of reference for this, and that's why I love that article. So is it allocating time for specific tasks? Is it attacking more complex tasks when you have the highest energy and sharpest concentration? That was a big one. I found, for me, and I think for students too, it's when are you most awake? Because, on the weekend, after school, before school, in the morning, you need to know that about yourself, because that's important, because then you can decide, when do I tackle the most difficult thing? Or, just whatever those things are, and just kind of have those conversations. And I'll go more in depth on all these. Auditing how time is spent. Oh, I had 45 minutes. What did I actually do with that time? breaking down broader goals into smaller parts, that gets into executive functioning. If you have a research paper, like what does that actually look like? Like what do you really need to do? Research, editing, you might need to do, citations. Like what does that really look like in the big picture? It's not just, I have to write a research paper. Creating daily, weekly, and monthly to-dos, which is actually like the little planner thing that you have in front of you. Planning your day the night before or first thing in the morning, and prioritizing a list of projects and focusing on higher value tasks with more immediate deadlines. So, why is this important? A variety of reasons. I have, when I wrote the second book, and actually when I wrote my first book, both of them I did this with, I call them working wisdoms because I love alliteration, because alliteration is awesome, and I use it in a lot of my work. But I had a lot of friends who were not educators, who were in different fields, whether it be architecture or beauty, or it be in this case software. And I said, what does time management look like to you, and what kind of feedback can you give our students? Because I think it's important. Not everybody's going to go into education. They're going to go into a lot of different fields, and there's a lot of advice that comes from those that are helpful for our students now. So Rashawn Richards is co-founder of Explain Everything. It's a fantastic app. It's like an explainer app. I'm fairly certain that our students have been using it like since its inception 10 plus years ago. But he talks about there's not one perfect formula or approach, but ultimately time is the scarcest resource, and habits around using time wisely will serve a learner of any age well for the rest of their lives. So I think that's important, and I'm sure you would agree. These two articles I will also send you, but I looked up top soft skills because time management is really considered a soft skill. And it's not something tangible necessarily, but it is something that's really important. And so there was a 2022 ZipRecruiter did this huge analysis on data, and it was really fascinating. And what they said, where they got the 3.6 million was, I think they looked at however many jobs were out there and how many of those jobs had the qualification in the list, like time management is a list, or time management is a must for this particular job. And communication came in as 6.1 million and time management 3.6 million. So there were 3.6 million jobs out there that said, yes, time management is listed under them. And then Forbes came out with another article. The Forbes, I don't have these in order because it was like 16 different skills. So I didn't take the top 8. I just kind of took 8 that I felt like were out of those 16. But the reason I did it this way, you can see time management has 5, but really teamwork, flexibility, continuous learning, looking after yourself, like all of those flow into time management, because time management isn't just like looking at a clock, it's a lot more. So I kind of wanted to ground that. This was a survey I had done a while back from the high school, I don't know, several years ago. And we had asked staff how important are these 3 skills. We had asked students how important are these 3 skills. And you can see concentration and time management were clearly very important. Our staff thought they were really important, and our students obviously thought they were really important as well. So the way that I'm doing the rest of the presentation is I like things to be very clear and concise and not confusing. So I'm going to say, here's a tip, here's a tool, here's a tip, here's a tool, here's a tip 10 times. So that's why you kind of have that in front of you. So it should be pretty concise and easy to follow. Tip number 1, I'm giving you kind of 2 different tips. The first one is batching tasks. And before I kind of get into this, if you're here for your students or your children, excellent. I think this is important stuff. But also, like, this stuff is valuable to any of us. Like, I use these things daily. I manage my schedule this way. I'm sure there are things that might be helpful to, kind of take away. Or that you're like, yes, I absolutely do that. That resonates with me and confirms my excellent time management. So batching tasks is just the idea of putting tasks together that require similar effort. Like, rather than me going to run an errand, then making a phone call, then running another errand, then sending an email, then running another errand and sending another email, and then making a call, like, I should just make all of my phone calls together, do all my emails together, and then run all my errands together. because they require different energy, and it's exhausting if you just like, I'm gonna go over here and then do this and this. Like it's absolutely exhausting. So that's the idea of batching tasks, and I'll kind of go over that a little bit more. And then time blocking, and this was a screenshot from a while ago, but time blocking was really being careful of, now kids are gonna be different because with a kid you're gonna have a very specific schedule, but even like, let's say they get home and it's 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and they've got 5 till 11. That's real. If they're a high school student, maybe midnight. I don't know. My kid, but that time. So it's like, okay, well, when am I really going to work on my, like really, rather just like I'm going to work on it tonight, and then coming into my bedroom at 10:30 at night and telling me that he needs help with an essay. That's also due that evening. Like maybe saying, hey, I've got an essay due this evening at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, I'm going to start working on it, and actually block off that time. So, and even predict, I think it's going to take me about an hour. So I'm going to block off from 8 to 9. If I finish early, great. If I don't, then, I've already given myself that allotment.
Were you at my house last night?
No, I was at my house. I was like, you have what? And how much time? I was like, well, I'll just get up early tomorrow morning and help you. He was like, no, it's due tonight. I was just like, okay, let's look at it. So when I was here, and I still do this, just a little bit differently, these are mind map to-do lists. And so the idea is I have this huge to-do list of things to do, right? And this is how I kind of group things. So rather than just making one long to-do list, I say these are all phone calls, these are all errands, these are all chores, these are all, in this case, things I have to create, things I have to plan, things I have to troubleshoot, things I have to do. Like I categorize them by what they are. And then that just makes it easier. Maybe it's like, these are all things I need to study. These are all things that I need to respond to a teacher about, so it's an email. These are all things that I have to, maybe go do. Like maybe it's like I need to get a haircut. I need to, go play basketball, practice, or I have, something like that. So it's just kind of chunking those things and being aware of that. And that's kind of what I call a mind map to-do list. The other thing is really just setting reminders for things. Like, and I remember when I was at the high school, this was like, I hope I hope that their knowledge of Google Calendar has changed. But like many of them at the time had no idea, they were just using it kind of as consumers. They had no idea that they could actually put in events for themselves and say, oh, hey, I need to set a reminder to, study for this, or I need to set a reminder to, I don't know, babysit my sister or whatever. Those sort of things. I even put in reminders of, I need to plan something, or I need to, do whatever the case may be. So, tip number 2. Oh, wait, did I miss it? No, I did not. Okay, cool. Tip number 2, this is just a quick little activity that I did with kids that kind of goes back to that time management. When you have kids like, okay, are you a day person? Are you a night person? And so I would just have like kids stand up. And then I would say, are you the type of person who needs to work in complete silence, or are you the type of person who doesn't mind having music or noise in the background? And then I would ask, are you the type of person who procrastinates the last minute, or, are you the type of person who wants to get it done early? I also know, so I did this for a few reasons. One, I wanted them to see that it's not a one size fits all. Like everybody's different, and so they can't, but they also have to understand themselves and where they are in this season. I will say, in college, I probably used to procrastinate a lot. I don't do that as much now, so I also think some of it's season of life and just understanding what procrastination does to you and the stress that it causes. But having these types of conversations with kids and kind of making sure that they understand, like, it's not a one-size-fits-all. If you're a night person, you're a day person, then you just need to be aware of that and adjust your schedule as best you can, knowing that there are fixed things in your schedule, like school and sleep, that you can't adjust, but you need to be able to work around those things. So there are 3 surveys. I'm also going to send Katie these. I'm not going to hop out of these because it's confusing, but I do have screenshots for you. What I noticed when I was Googling these initially is I couldn't find any of these surveys like at high schools or middle schools or like K through 12. They were all in college sort of settings. They were all on college websites. And so they were very simple ones, but I like the verbiage of it. So they would be like, the tasks I work on are the ones with the highest priority. And then that would be like, I don't know, sometimes to never. And then I find myself completing tasks at the last minute or asking for extensions. I set aside time for planning and scheduling. I find myself dealing with interruptions. This is a big one. I leave contingency time in my schedule to deal with the unexpected. And so it was just like, it was just making them aware of these things that they may or may not have thought of. This was another one. Do you meet assignment deadlines? Do you write a daily to-do list? Like I do literally every day. In fact, that's what this is right now. Every day I just put a little to-do list on my laptop. And these three, one of them came from Mind Tools, the other one came from University of Louisiana, and then the other one came from Psychology Today. So they were all like beyond sort of a K through 12 sector, but I think they're really important to look at because I don't think they're beyond in the sense of what we can share. I love to read a lot. Tip number 3 focuses around procrastination, and it comes from the book, The Productivity Project. So he talked about procrastination, and he just had this great sort of like, if you're procrastinating, it's not just like, don't take procrastination as a surface level, get underneath it, like why are they procrastinating? And like this was so good. I've used this quite a few times. So are you procrastinating because what you're needing to do is boring? If it's boring, go somewhere. Like go to a coffee shop, go outside, go take a walk, like go somewhere where it's not boring, because that helps. The next one was, are you procrastinating because it's frustrating? Like it's just really hard. Like I'll give you a perfect example. Geometry in high school is hard. Proofs are hard. I do not like doing them, and I've had to do them more and more this year in helping. And so I'm like, 30 minutes. I was like, I can do about 30 minutes of this right now before like I'm tapped out. So being able to set limits for things, and even have kids set limits, like, okay, how much of this do you think you can do right now? Okay, I can do about 10 minutes, I can do about 15 minutes, I can do about 20. Like, start there. Because if it's frustrating and you're like, oh, I've got 3 hours, like you're not gonna do it. You're gonna do anything but that. The next one is it difficult? Are you frustrating because it's just difficult? In that case, make sure you have enough energy. Like, don't do it right before you're gonna go to bed, especially not geometry proofs. And also make sure that you've researched everything you need. Like, here's a perfect example, taxes. Taxes are kind of a pain. We all have to do them, or at least have everything together to give them to somebody else to do. And so that also is like, what else do I need? Like, what forms do I need? You know, is there like a rebate that I need to have that information? Like, what do I need to have in place? Same thing with kids. If they're working on a research paper, like, what do they need? Do they need the library? Do they just need the internet? Do they need access to, you know, Noodle tools or something like that? Like, what do they all need to have, and make sure that they have it before they start, so that's not a barrier. If it's unstructured or ambiguous, like a lot of those open-ended assignments, those are really frustrating to kids. So if that's the case, then help them come up with detailed plans and a list. So rather than saying, hey, your research paper is due in 3 weeks, like, let's write the thesis. Now let's write the first paragraph. Let's do some research, you know, let's work on the citations. Let's do some research and editing, like breaking down what all of that is. And then if it's lacking in personal meaning, which, let's face it, some things are, but we still have to do them, then, you know, perhaps, he said, thinking about meaningful things that may happen with this project, like, oh, well, you know, me doing this helps me be more flexible, or me doing this helps, you know, might be a foundation for a job in X, or whatever that is. And then lacking in intrinsic rewards. So if it's just like, I don't feel very intrinsically motivated to do this, then sometimes you can reward yourself for increments of doing it. Like, now that I've done this, I am going to go buy a new pair of shoes. Or now that I've done this, I am going to, I don't know, get a candy bar. Whatever is like, or 30 minutes of, you know, Xbox time, whatever it is. Let them choose, let yourself choose, you know you better, but these are all really helpful. And then these are tools that I thought were really helpful. When I did the digital distractions workshop that I used to do here, I would share these 3 tools. So there's screen blockers. Forest on the far left is available on iOS and Google Play. It's the only one that costs money. The rest of them are free. Forest, essentially, you just set a time, and like a shrub is growing. You're not supposed to be like on your phone or doing anything on your phone, and then the shrub grows and you know get other pretty shrubs, and it's like a whole gamified thing. But if you do things on your phone during that time frame, then the shrub dies, and it is sad.
Intense. I like that.
And then there is obviously like that sort of motivation that you now killed a tree or a shrub. When I was writing one of my books, I used it's just for MacBooks. It's free. You download it. It's called Self-Control for MacBook, and you literally just type in websites you don't want access to. So I would type in like Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, whatever. And you say like for how long. It might be 6 hours, 24 hours, 4 hours. The beauty of this is like without deleting the app, like you cannot get to them. You know how like in Instagram, if you set like, oh, I only want to be on Instagram for 45 minutes, and it gives you a reminder, you've been on Instagram for 45 minutes, and you're like, oh, nice, okay. And then you just like, keep doing it. With this, like there's no keep doing it. You would have to like completely get rid of the program. And then for Google Chrome, which essentially works on any device, MacBook or not, you just have to have the Chrome browser. There's something called Stay Focused. It's free and it kind of works the same way. So they're just different types of screen tools. I have till 1, yes? Mm-hmm. Okay, just want to make sure I'm good on my time. Excellent. Okay, this is tip number 4. These are my favorite. Actually, all of these are my favorite. These make me very happy. So I'm going to share this one first, and then I'm going to give you an example, and then I'm going to go back to the rest of the list. So a procrastination list is kind of what I was telling you about before, and I'm going to kind of just give you the example and then come back to it. Okay, so I've been writing this book with my dad. And it is hard, and it is not something that happens overnight. In fact, I started writing it in March, and I like just got to the end a few weeks ago, and now I'm having to go back and edit and all of that other stuff. And so when you're doing something that takes a long time, maybe not several months, but even a month or a few weeks, you're going to want to procrastinate, and there are ways that you can positively procrastinate and possibly even make a list. So for me, I'll kind of walk you through a few of these. So some of it was like, I want to read some research. I want to read, so the Midnight Library is an allegory. It was great because I had some allegorical elements within the book, and I was like, oh, this would be great to kind of just feed, what I'm doing. Walking on Water was another one. It's by Madeleine L'Engle. That was also really good because it kind of helped me balance some things. Sometimes, rather than just binging Netflix, I'll watch something that at least like gives me some sort of inspiration. So Abstract on Netflix is all about like the art of design, and it's actually just really interesting. And so I would watch those. My dad grew up in Pennsylvania, and so I would go find like a documentary about that might feed kind of some of the stories. This was from Rocky Glen Park. And then, I would work on an outline of the book, or I would take an online class. So these are all things that like aren't writing, but they all feed that. So if kids, like kind of what I was saying, if kids are trying to write a research paper and they're getting really, I always get stuck on the research paper example, but if they're trying to do that and they're getting frustrated with it, there are a lot of other things that they can be doing that still feed the finished product of that, but may not be actually physically writing the paper. And so that's kind of what I wanted to get at. Oops, go back to this. Okay, so micro time goals, those are all really important. I kind of mentioned it before in the frustration. If something is frustrating, what's the minimum amount of time you can do it? How long can we do proofs today? Can we do proofs for 20 minutes? All right, 20 minutes it is. We'll come back to it in another 20 minutes. Many times when you get into 20 minutes, you can probably get into 30 or 40 because you kind of got the ball rolling, but it just kind of depends. A procrastination list in the moment is slightly different. So what happens, and I'm sure this happens to all of us, like I'm working on something, like I have dedicated the time and I have sat down and I'm gonna do it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I have to do laundry. or like, oh, that just like, I forgot I had to call this person, and oh, this email came in. And so just having like a list of paper saying, okay, I'm still working on this. I don't want to forget those things, and just jot those things down. Like, I need to finish laundry, I need to do those sort of things. So you're not leaving this. Same thing with kids, if they're working on proofs again. They're so hard. Oh, and I just forgot I had to remember to feed the dog. I was like, okay, well, you can do that. But if you get up to do that right now, like, we're never going to finish this. So, like, you can do it. Just write it down and remember to do it. Or I need to call my friend. I forgot I had to call my friend about this concert. And I was like, no, you can do that. Do this first. And then nightly skeleton lists. I borrowed this from an author. She came to the library at one point and did like a talk. And she was talking about, she's like, if I just got up in the morning and started to write, she's like, that would be really hard. But what she's like, I do is I create kind of an outline the night before, and then like I get up and it's not like, oh, what do I have to do? Like, it's already listed for me. And it's kind of what I do too. It's like, if I woke up in the morning and I'm like, what do I have to do today? And I see a giant to-do list, I'm not gonna do any of it because it's just overwhelming. But every night before I go to bed, I write down like 4 or 5 things, and then I star like the main things that I have to do. Like this one was, make sure you have everything for time management talk. Computer, dongles, plugs. And then like, another one was finalize, lunch with somebody tomorrow. And then another one was make a dessert for tonight because I have something I have to go to. So if I have those, then I have like my morning and everything else kind of started. Same thing with kids. Like what do you have tomorrow? Do you have a test to study for? Do you have to be ready for basketball? If you have to be ready for basketball, remember your shoes, like just stuff like that. Control-Alt-Delete came from an article, and it was the idea of, which I think is really important, because these are all like shifts, like you're making shifts in your behavior, and that's not an easy thing. So I'll give you a perfect example. So if I have, let's pretend this is my remote to my TV, which is not my TV, but if I have it right by my bed, and there's like Netflix and Hulu and all of those things, it's gonna be the thing I reach for because it's there. But if I put this like, I don't know, in the laundry room, or at least somewhere further, and I put, I don't know, a book or something like this, I'm probably in a moment more apt to just go read the book and read for a few pages than do that. But it's setting up, the room for success, and it's setting up things for success. And then there was some research that went to talking about songs for each type of work and task. And it wasn't so much about the song itself, it was the song giving you sort of dopamine. So like if it was a song that like brought you joy, then it's a song that you would listen to before you started work, because it just puts you in a better mood. I mean, like, this all makes sense, right? But like, it was just setting yourself up for that. And sometimes you can get even granular with this and start doing things like picking a specific song for a specific type of work, and you only listen to that song right before doing geometry proofs. And then you're already in like at least a little bit of a better mood. So it was a really interesting, I'm sure you can Google those sort of things too, but it was kind of fascinating, and I've already talked to you about that. So one of the tools I like is Google Keep. I had showed many of the kids, because this is all access, like they have access to this on literally any device. It's a beauty, and it's free, and it's tied to Google accounts. So they can easily make Post-it notes, they can set reminders, they can check off things, they can cross off things, they can create collaborative notes. So you could create, a note for them that said, these are the 5 things you need to remember to do this week, stuff like that. But that would be a good tool to use. Okay, I love planners. I also like organizational systems. So somebody was asking me, like, what is your system for things? Do you have to do it this way? No, but I think sometimes having this conversation with kids is important, because they don't always know, oh, I didn't realize you don't just like highlight everything. Like you highlight the most important thing. So this was kind of my system was, I wrote down everything I needed to do in pen, and then I would highlight anything that was a priority for that day or for that week. And it might be multiple things. So I was like, I know these are priority items, even though this is my to-do list, like these things could possibly be done the following week. These things have to be done this week. And then I would put a check mark next to anything that I've completed. I know this doesn't get geeky and granular, but bear with me. I would put a check mark next to anything that I've completed, but I still needed to follow up on. So if it's like I called somebody, this would be great. Like maybe it's for college applications. Like I've made that phone call, but most likely I'm gonna need to follow up with that person if that person doesn't email me back. So I put a check mark, so that would be carried over. Like I've done my part, but I don't wanna lose that reminder. And then I would put a line through anything that's fully completed, and I would put a Sharpie squiggly line through anything that was removed from my list, but I just didn't complete it because I just decided it wasn't worth completing anymore. So this I had developed with our academic interventionist when I was at the high school. You have a copy of it, and I just created it every year for students. Our academic interventionist had said basically once kids got it and they kind of explained it, they didn't really have to come in anymore because they understood what they needed to do and they had the tools. So on the front, it's pretty simple. It's just a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It has a priority item, so those are like burning, like have to be done right now sort of things. It might be, turning in a late work because I'm gonna lose 30 points on it or whatever. Might be, a college sort of assignment, or application. And then any time this week is like, yes, it needs to be done, but it's not like this very second. And then you have upcoming tests and projects, which seem to just magically appear at 10:30 o'clock at night. And then I always think it's important to talk about, like, what do I have this weekend? Because sometimes it's like, oh, I'll do it on the weekend. And it's like, well, no, you can't, because we've got to go to our families, we've got to do this and this and this. So, like, if you're planning to do it all this weekend, let's think about what we already have scheduled for this weekend that's fixed. And then next week is always just important, like, what do I have coming up that I just need to be aware of? And so that's really that. And then the back of it typically has a monthly calendar. You had the November version. And then on the left-hand side, it just has a bunch of questions. So questions like, what events, commitments outside of school do I have? Those are really important. They have to be aware of clubs, organizations, babysitting, work, basketball tryouts. What tests and projects? Another one, what group projects do I have coming up? What role do I have, and how and when will we meet? Like all of those sort of things are logistical things that they just have to be aware of. And so I just have a whole list of questions there that they can kind of be reminded of. And then even personal ones, like how long do I think each task will take? That's a huge one. Oh, you have that, and actually I'm happy just to give that to them if they want the rest of it. I think I had sent it to you in the beginning of the year anyway, so the 2022 version. So Audrey used to work for Soundtrap. I think she still does. I can't remember. But she was another sort of working wisdom, and her tip was just really good. I really liked it. So again, with the book, I was asking, what sort of feedback could you give our students? What type of advice? And she said, find good role models, study how people work and behave, and then be kind. And a lot of the things that I'm sharing with you today are, things that I've studied, things I've observed, things I've found, things I've researched, because there's not a one-size-fits-all approach, and some of these things are going to work now, some things are going to work later, but they all work. This was one I found from a lady off of Instagram. On the left-hand side, she's from lauren.creates on Instagram. I have a picture of her example in the book as well. And she did this thing called productivity bingo that just like made me super happy. And I was like, I must know everything about this. So essentially what it is, you can kind of see it, is she creates a bingo board, nothing fancy. You could buy bingo boards, you could print bingo boards for free, you could even draw one. And she just writes down everything she has to do. And you can kind of, what I really liked about it is here you can see like load dishwasher, empty dishwasher. And then she's here like wash clothes, dry, sort, and then hang. So she's got like in 4 squares within the big square. And she just like highlights them, whenever she's done. And just seeing everything you've done makes us feel productive, because sometimes you're like, oh, I haven't done anything. When in reality, like you've taken kids back and forth to school like 15 times, you've picked up their friends, you've, gone and picked up food for things you didn't think you were gonna have to do. Like there's just like all of these things, you're like, where did my day go? Well, it's always kind of nice to be able to honor your time. And then she would get a prize if she did bingo, like for herself, whatever it was. And so I did this with our students in the library, and I just printed out something simple. And it was important to see this because, one, it was a way that they could kind of gamify what they were doing, but it's still a to-do list. It's just not linear. And it was also good because it helped them break down one big thing into smaller chunks, which is really important for kids to be able to do, adults too. And so here you can see like AP Human Geo Unit 1, 30 minutes. Cello, less than an hour, or greater than an hour. Cello 1. Bio Unit 2, 30 minutes. Bio Unit 4, 30 minutes. Bio Unit 6, 30 minutes. And so she like mapped out, I'm assuming, the next 2 weeks. Because you could do it for a week, you could do it for 2 weeks, you could do it for a month, just depends on how you want to do it. But it's a nice way to go, okay, this is everything, and I can see it, and I can highlight through it, and I've kind of been able to break it down too, which is good. So, a few tips. I think these all come from that article too. So it's important to do goal setting. It's important to break down tasks like you just saw. It's important to prioritize those tasks. It's also important to audit how your time spent, like where did the last 45 minutes or 3 weeks go. It's also important to know yourself in the sense of like, am I a morning person? Am I like, why am I procrastinating? And if so, this is what I need to be able to do. And then once you kind of have all of these things, it's not going to be perfect. So you're going to go, okay, well, that worked well. This didn't work well. Let me go back and look at this. And you're just going to kind of keep readjusting. So that kind of leads me to tool number 7. I don't know, is Susanna McConnell still at the high school?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I worked on this with Susanna McConnell. She teaches social, it's like, is it AP human?
No, AP economics.
There it is, AP economics. And what she was doing was, and this happens a lot, in college as well as here, like kids will get a packet, typically a project packet, and they don't know how to break down all of that information into like the micro assignments and all of the little things that they need to do and to remember. And so we created this. It's very simple. It says project planning guide. And on the left-hand side, it says, what do we know about the project requirements? So basically, go through the entire, like, what do we know? And then, what do we need to know? And then it has information for the group members, like if you're working with a group, like write down their name, get their phone number, what is your role? And then, especially if it's something where there's multiple tasks each person is doing, what tasks do they have? Is it completed? So I'm going to give you kind of a closer look at what this said. I don't remember exactly what the project was, but what do they know? They knew the individual research is due 11:59 on October 11th. Basically, they're just going through and picking out all the information. It doesn't take too long, but it's worth the 15 minutes to do this. The project's due at 8 a.m. October 16th. No late projects will be accepted. Project counts as a major grade. Individual research counts as 20% of the major grade. Grade is assessed based on rubric. 5 days will be provided in class, but some work will need to be done outside of class. So already they need to kind of be planning for that. There are 4 roles. So they've got a historian, economist, social anthropologist, policy expert, and there's several potential topics to investigate. And then what do they need for the project? They need to choose a topic. So these are like their action items. They need to choose one of the 4 roles. They need to complete individual research with 4 credible sources and citations. Like, this is like everyday life. Like, when you're in a job and you're given a project, like people don't typically break this stuff down for you. Like, you have to do that. And so teaching kids to do that now in kind of a walled garden is really important. Getting group members' contact info, rehearsing the presentation, creating a group presentation video, that sort of stuff. So that was a great sort of easy tool. And then Bulb is a online platform for portfolios that we had used at one point. And she said, don't rely on your teacher or parents to give you reminders to help you to manage your time and tasks. Take ownership of your work. If you could be successful in managing your time well, you are setting yourself up for success in any career, which is true. Time management, you can't get time back. So this is a tool I had created early on with COVID, but honestly, I think it's really helpful for executive functioning. So, and it's super simple, and you can create something like this for your kids. I think it's more important at the beginning of the year or when classes change, but I think it's still valuable to think about. So, on the left-hand side, you just basically have the class period and the times, and then over here you have the course name. Back in the day we had the Zoom links. You have the name of the teacher, name of co-teacher, platform used, which is still important because not everybody uses Google Classroom. There are some that have to use a particular, like our foreign languages sometimes use a different platform. I think it's Schoology. And so just like noting that, so they're like, oh wait, it's not in Google Classroom, it's in Schoology. You can just print out this sheet. Tools for studying, like what, do they all use Quizlet? Do they use this other tool? And just jotting down, like these are the tools we use for studying. Tutoring times and locations on one sheet of paper for all the classes is like gold. It's really, really helpful to have that all in one spot. And then late work policy, because everybody's late work policy is different. So like, what's your late work policy for your English class versus your late work policy or retesting policy for geometry? Like just jot those things down because those are helpful to know and those are also helpful to have handy. And then any other additional notes. Again, that's something easy to do. Honestly, they could just jot all of that down, but that was, and I think I have all of these as templates for you. If you just want to and edit them, you can have them. Tip number 9 comes from Peter Neblin. He used to do spoken word performances, actually at one of our poetry slam places here in Austin. And he said, you'll have thousands of great, important, or hugely profitable ideas in your life. You'll only benefit from the ones you commit to and organize so that you can access them again and again and again. So it does come down to some level of organization. So tool number 9, I use what I call a desktop organizer. If you've never heard of these, if you just Google custom desktop wallpaper or custom desktop organizer, there's 14,000 of them available. And they're just literally an image where you can drag folders and documents into places so it just appears more organized rather than chaos. And it makes me happy. So another thing I was teaching kids, which seems simple, but it really is helpful, is just color coding folders. And so in Google Drive, pretty much in anything, you can color code folders. Sometimes I'll add an emoji in front of them. Sometimes I'll add a star in front of them. Here you can see with documents, and I wouldn't do this to every document, but if there were certain documents that I used a lot, sometimes I might add an emoji in front of it, or some sort of icon just visually so I could find it a little bit faster, or I could star it. But those are different ones you'll see in a second. And then I'm going to show you the website with all of this. And Kayla Kagan, she wrote Piper Paris. She's a YA author. And I just loved her quote. She said, how you spend your minutes is how you spend your days, and how you spend your days is how you spend your life. It's very poetic. So I wanted to share the last tool with you, which is Fudge Factor. And good, I have time for questions. Excellent. So Fudge Factor has nothing to do with fudge at all. It has to do with auditing your time and becoming better at knowing how long things will take you. So there's some math here, but humor me. So vacuuming. Let's say I have to vacuum. And I think it's going to take 45 minutes when in reality it only takes 20. Well, even before I get into Fudge Factor, if I think it takes 45 minutes, I'm probably not going to do it because that's too long. But if in reality it only takes 20 minutes and now I know that, I'm like, oh, 20 minutes is not that long. And so same thing for the kids. And this is a very easy thing to do. It's just having a sheet of paper. How long do you think it's going to take you to do your math homework tonight? It's going to take me 3 hours. Okay, probably not. Maybe, but probably not. And then just jot down, how long did it actually take you? It's a simple thing to do, but it's so powerful because it avoids, oh, it's going to take me 3 hours. No, in fact, it took you 35 minutes. You complained about this and it took you 35 minutes. And probably 35 of those minutes were complaining about it. So just being aware of that, and I'll talk about Fudge Factor in a second. Same thing with working on a presentation. This is actually the flip side. So many times when I have to do a presentation, research paper, anything, I'm like, it'll take me 2 hours. in reality, it takes like 6, 8, 12, hours. So also giving myself a little bit more time and grace with those things. But the way that fudge factor works is essentially you divide the time it actually takes by the time you think it will take, and you get a number. So in this case, it takes 2.5 times longer than I actually thought it would take. And in here, it takes almost 50% less of what I actually thought it would take. Do you have to do the fudge factor? No. But having that, how long do I think it'll take and how long does it actually take, is really powerful information. And it helps you make better decisions about your day, your choices, all of those things. So, yeah, had to do all the math. So, I will pull this up, assuming, and you can scan the code as well. So I have what I call a digital doc locker. It has a lot of these templates already in there. Some are PDF, some are like pages, like specifically MacBook or Apple documents, and then others are Google. But I have like all 3 of them, so however you choose, if you're like, I just want to print something, you can print it. If you want to do something else with it. But the QR code's there, and then it's is.gd/C as in creatively, P as in productive, doc, D-O-C, locker. And everything's there. Basically what you got today was chapter 2 of my book. It's on time, well, the book itself is many, many different things. It talks about digital organization, note-taking, time management, goals and habits, academic reflection, reader's notebooks, a variety of different things. But chapter 2 specifically on time management. So that's kind of what you got today. And then, because I'm an author, I do have books here. I know they're more than that price on Amazon. If you want to buy them on Amazon, that's fine, but I have some here as well if you'd like to buy them. I have the Venmo up there, but I'm also happy to answer questions. And I can pull up that website, but my whole thing will crash when I do that, so. But I'll do that in a second as well. Are there questions? Are there things that resonate with you? I know I went really quickly through that. I like talking about it, and I'm also Italian, so then I just get like really excited, and then I just like keep going. So let me know your thoughts and feelings on these matters.
I love the procrastination bingo, the one that that I'm gonna show that to my team. She's a huge procrastinator, so she can score points when she does the things. Yeah.
I have a question about college. Do you help kids with college admissions? Like get ready for that? Or no?
I help with just skills.
Okay.
I don't help with college admission at all. No.
Okay. Because I've been
that I don't know.
Yeah, my oldest is 8th, so just been hearing a lot of people with high schoolers have hired somebody to help through the whole process.
You probably know better than I do.
I mean, I feel like it's really young. Usually I would say like maybe end of sophomore year is more ideal. Yeah.
I
I help more with the college and career readiness skills, like the time management, the
right,
organization, right. like those sort of foundational skills, not necessarily specifically for.
I think that's, I don't know what.
No,
I just
that's
know
okay.
my kid needs help. That's why I'm here. So are courses like that available? The college readiness, college skills readiness? Like, I don't know.
Yes, we're gonna have Lisa start one. I
I
think
will
we
say-
need this. Yes.
We need it so badly. I mean, my kid, he's awesome, but he don't want to hear it. I'm super organized. I love my little planners too, and all the things. I'm like, I do all of it. But he doesn't want to hear it from me, so we gotta.
I will
figure
say
out.
if there's ever like a mom's group or something like that, you're like, would you just come talk to them or come do something like that? I'd be happy to do that. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Any of my